Hey everyone, welcome back to Canton. Game 4 of 14. So far in this tournament, if you've been keeping track, I've won my first 3 games. Um, the last game was a bit more difficult to win, but I somehow managed it. And I think last game was the first game there were no phonies involved in the game. Um, so yeah, that was good. It was good to have a clean game for once. The first 2 games, in game 1 I played Mark Pistolesi, and he phoned me with Twinking. I then challenged off his second phony of Livation. And in the second game against Steve Osorio, I played a phony word Seshurik, um, instead of just playing a valid word. Um, but yeah, this is game 4. I'm playing my clubmate Barbara Bultz, who I evaluated was probably the weakest player in the field. Not the lowest rated player, but the lowest rated player is an up and coming, very underrated player, I find. And I think I was playing him next, maybe. But we'll have to see, one game at a time. Um, and yeah, I thought maybe the game was gonna go pretty easily, but obviously I couldn't rule out having a harder time. Barbara can sometimes surprise. Well, it's actually no surprise when she plays well, finds good bingos and stuff. But anyways, let's just jump into it. I was first. I had this rack, and the question was just: do I sacrifice 4 points for the weaker placement of hexing, um, just to not give back this overlapping potential? And to facilitate matters, sometimes when I'm looking at opening play, I will have the horizontal play on the board. Maybe somewhat is easier for people to visualize, but also because it takes the suggested plays are never vertical, which is a problem for people like me that are verties. Definitely makes us feel like second class citizens. But all jokes aside, it's worth maybe usually a couple points to not create a situation where you're putting vowels next to double letter scores. So usually you don't ever want to sacrifice more than 2 points to do something like that. So this is no different. So I played hexing for 42, and Bar responds with Hori. I have utopial in my rack, and I couldn't remember if utopial is a word. We can check it actually. Let's give it a second here. Um, let the bot load up. Check utopial. I don't think it's a word. I decided it wasn't a word. Utopian is a word. Actually, maybe it is a word. Okay, yeah, no. Utopic and utopian are valid, not utopial. But I found a bingo through the R. Trupial, that's the only bingo. It does slot a very juicy S hook, but that's of little concern when you're scoring 50 more points than your next best play. Barbara changes 5, and already I'm off to a very nice start. I've drawn the first S of the game. I saw new weds or newlyweds. I was like, I wonder if you can say new weds, not newlyweds. But no, you cannot. Um, I think my only question here was if newsed was a valid word, and I decided it was not. And it is indeed not a word. There are a couple options here. Um, Actually, I'm gonna put a decent amount of plays out here. This one is possible. This one's not good. Um, this one's not good. This one's not good. This one's not good. Okay, so five candidate options here. They're all pretty similar. It's just a question of let's just make it a little bit better. It's just a question of which one helps me the most, which one gives back the least. Just a math equation here. Someone seems pretty nice. If I draw another E, I can I can underlap pretty nicely. It also creates this right angle, uh, creating the situation where this bottom left part of the board is very difficult to access. You'd have to make some sort of overlapping play of hexing. It's hard to overlap Gs. It's hard even to play through Gs. So playing on this side, not creating any hooks, and really containing the board is a very good idea that I probably should have considered a bit more at length, um, especially considering Barbara had just exchanged 5, which makes her rack probably somewhat better than average. So I wouldn't want to allow a bingo here immediately. But I ended up playing dues, paying my dues. But I think Sohn is potentially better. Of course, this isn't going to keep the board closed for for the entirety of the rest of the game. It just makes it a bit harder to access the space for now. Eventually, a play will probably be made underneath Sohn, and then a play underneath that play, most likely. And then slowly but surely, the bottom left of the board might become accessible. Um, but this looks really good. 11k Sohn. Didn't consider it. Um, let's make this a tactics small. There you go. Wens is actually doing similarly to dues, wens, and news. Keeping the D with the W really increases my average score. I'm going to be able to score nicely with the WED combination more so than with the WEN. So it's possible that sacrificing the 2 points is acceptable here. And between dues and weds, I don't want to put the W here because it just allows plays that score a lot more down to the triple. Even though potentially fewer of those plays are available, it's pretty easy to make a play with pretty much any letter at this, just to make a 5-letter word. So even though there are more letters, more words that play with the D, the score of the words with the W is 6 more. So I don't really want to do that. Anyways, I think this was a small inaccuracy, if anything. Barbara plays EAU, which actually does a great job of trying to pry open the left side of the board, I would say. Creates this lane here, this potential scoring spot here. That might lead to more play on the left side. And also gets rid of bad letters. And here I had this rack, right? Yeah. And I didn't really see anything great in this position. Yeah, I think after I made my play, I realized that I probably could have just played Duan down here. Toff is not a good play. But I ended up playing Wolf. Let's see how these 2 plays compare with Wolf. These obviously open floaters for Barbara to play through. She does seem closer to a bingo than one might expect a normal or an average rack to be. So especially this N might not be the greatest idea to float out in space. And she doesn't seem to have any scoring tiles, so I'm not super concerned with leaving all these scoring spots open. Yeah, so I think my play is probably the right thing to do in that position. And unfortunately for Barbara, she once again is struggling. The racks, she plays TAU for 8. At least this creates a stun line here, but also um, undoes what she just did in creating this F8 bingo lane. But yeah, rough spot for her, it seems. And I drew 3 vowels. Dying is possible here. Phi is possible here. F is possible. I ended up playing Feign, just maximizing my score. Obviously, keeping EEI was concerning or disconcerting, but I thought this did a decent job at keeping things a bit under control. I am creating this this 13 lane here that I don't really like, but there's no way to really not do that. I can play Dain, but for the same reason, I don't really want to create any floaters for Barber, make her life easier. Fee could be alright as well. Um, but that sort of leads to potentially more openings on the right side of the board. Whereas Feign, it's a lot harder to access now, the bottom right of the board. So for the same reason that maybe you'd want to play Sown instead of Dews, I played Feign. And all the plays seem pretty close here, so I'm not too concerned with the result of the simulation. She cashes in her V that she just drew, most likely. And I draw 2 consonants and 2 vowels, which is pretty balanced. I considered playing toe and I considered playing I. I didn't really see anything else in this position. I could also exchange. I'm definitely not playing that. These other options are terrible. Fee, fo. I is potentially okay. Epode is horrible. Sets up nice S lane. She probably has an S at this point. I guess I could play Toad. But yeah, all of these other options are really bad. Let's put the exchange in there and see what the simulation thinks. This position is really not ideal to be keeping vowel heavy leaf, but I can easily draw into a bingo next turn if I draw 1 consonant. But wow, Toe is killing it. I questioned whether DEIS was a better leave than DEIOS, but I also just didn't want to create this opening here on the end column. Didn't want to be that aggressive. But so far, I mean, it's only been 300 or so iterations. We're bingoing more after toe, but not significantly more. It's probably just because of its opening, but also the leave is probably slightly better. And this is something that I've never really been able to get right. Do you keep 2 E's or do you keep an E and an O? It's always one or the other, and it's very difficult for me to ascertain which of the 2 I should do at any given position, and I always seem to get it wrong according to the simulation. So I have like this reverse um, extrasensory perception or something of just always making the wrong decision according to the engine on whether to keep an E and an O or an E and an E. It's always very close. Um, so yeah, I don't really know how to get over that. Seems like it's I don't know. I tried doing the opposite thing that I thought was right, but that didn't work either. So that means that I was actually right to begin with. So maybe there is hope for me. Anyways, all that being said, again, these plays are pretty close. I stylistically did not want to open this end column and played I. Seems totally fine. And then she follows up with playing arm, which is funny, playing all the body parts. And you see on the last plays, actually, I'll come back to this in a second. I draw into oroids, only bingo, only spot. Barb then plays nib here, and yeah, things are just not going well for her. I play Kaid and I keep AAEIN. That's probably the right play. I could play Aqua, but no need there. Just take the points. And then Barbara plays Tech. Now, if you look at all these plays that Barbara's made, she's played 3 tiles, 3 tiles, 3 tiles, 2 tiles, 3 tiles, 1 tile, but she's made all 3-letter words, which is very interesting. But yeah, this is just a sign that things are really, really not going her way this game. And okay, so now I have this rack, and I decided to make a very aggressive decision here. Decided to make a decision, very aggressive play. And I play Ohio, which is just like really asking for a large comeback play. But at this point, I was up 175 or 100 and is that right? I think that's the right math. And so I was just like, I don't think I'm losing this game. It's very hard to bingo multiple times on this board, and I just decided again. It was somewhat early in the tournament. This is the fourth game, so it was still important maybe to build up my spread. So I decided to just make this very aggressive play of Ohio. I don't recommend it. Don't try it at home. But I think it worked out for me. She played tick for 32. Still, after playing one tile, she's not bingoing. And here is the point in the game where um, I think people should hide hide anybody who's sensitive to um, meanness. I did mention at the beginning of this video, reminding you guys the phony word that was played against me in the Mark Pistolesi game. Um, and here I took the opportunity to attempt the same exact word that I knew was not a word, that I've known wasn't a word for a very long time, against Barbara to see if she'd bite. She was already obviously very distraught with the way the game was going, and this is kind of a mean thing, but it's part of the game. If she challenged it, she might have made somewhat of a comeback in the game. But given that there were no great plays, I decided to try the phony. Um, and she let it go. She didn't bat an eye. So sorry, Barbara, if you're watching this. Um, but yeah, I used one of my opponent's tricks against another opponent. Um, and I'm not really, I guess I'm somewhat proud of it. Who knows? Um, anyways, Barbara is next to play. She plays um, BO. Where does she play BO? Where does she play that? I don't remember this. BO. Ah, just right here. Okay, so she drops her B. Um, and she said at this point, I hate doing this, like basically referring to fishing. She fished the C, she fished the B. She doesn't like to do that. She knows that it's um, not great to be fishing all game, but at some point you're just too far gone. And here was an interesting spot. So not only did I phony here, I also created a situation where if Barbara were to play with Levations, I would challenge off the phony, which is even worse than just getting away with the phony in the first place. It's basically like kicking someone when they're down. Um, and so I decided, I first saw, oh, I could just play Levations and Z's, and she probably won't challenge. But then I saw that I could play Elevation, and I was like, okay, I might actually be wrong to do this. You see the difference in valuation, right? Between the two plays here. Um, Zoa, if I play Zoa and just wait, eventually, with two blanks and an S out, it's very likely that Barbara is going to play with Levations, and I'm going to get a free turn. There's no way for me to quantify the value of that within Quackle, but I will tell you that getting a free turn is usually very nice value. It's like 30 to 50 points or something of value, um, or so. And so leaving Levations alone for Barbara to fall into the trap is probably the right thing to do, even though the equity on playing Z in Elevation, making an actual S hook that exists, that is a word, is so strong. It's an 18-point difference. So it's possible that just playing Zoa, leaving a much worse leave, is a better play here. But I decided, let's give back. Let's give back to Barbara. I don't want to embarrass her any further. He says while he's obviously making uh, a video of having phonied Barbara. Anyways, I have remorse. I have remorse. I felt bad for sure. And next, I think Barbara played air for 4. Is that possible? It says air for 4. I don't see anywhere else she would do that. I have this now, and I played goose. Oh no, I played goose. Keeping the E because of how few vowels remained unseen to me. Again, at the middle game, in the middle game, and especially a bit later in the game, you have to be acutely aware of the vowel consonant ratio because that will influence your plays. It'll influence your plays more and more as the game goes on, but especially now with 18 unseen tiles with only 2 I's as vowels. Um, if you don't notice that and you play goose for 3 more points, you're losing out on a lot. The value of this E, this extra E, is immense in this position. So I can't stress it enough. Always look at the unseen letters, um, especially later in the game. Anyways, she just played air, and now Barbara plays transit with both blanks. So some funny themes: eye, arm, air, transit. Let's see if she had anything much better. Okay, she can play Antseer with Wolves. That's a tough find. Um, look, this play of Ertz has a similar value. That's funny. And there's like 7 million bingos. Now I have to put it back. Oops. Okay. So Barbara plays Transit. Finally, bingos. Um, but unfortunately, what? What? What happened here? How did I invent? Oh, she must not have played air where I thought she played it. But where did she play it? Because I had this rack Al Unite. Huh. Okay, so she didn't play air here. I have to. Oh, she just dropped the R. Okay. Sorry. Going back a little bit. That makes a lot more sense anyway. Um, transit. I can't type. Al Unite. And yeah, that was just ridiculous to draw into a bingo in this pool. And look at the letters she has now. Um, she finds DJ GMLRP. She finds a great play of Dojo, just a slightly better play to play Mojo. Um, and I dropped the Y here for 15. I had to consider whether Tiki was a word for a second, but this scores more anyway. Um, and that's it, 597 to 76. So this is a win by 321 points. I tried to go through it relatively quickly because it was just over for pretty much more than half of the game. There was no issues coming back after Oroids. Pretty much the game is over. But yeah, I guess this is an educational game in how to build up your spread, and also get extremely lucky in the process. Oh, I forgot to mention. Um, here she played arm, and then while she was drawing, she drew 3 tiles, which she says, and I think is true. She never does that. Um, she never overdraws, but she overdrew, and I overturned NT blank very sadly, putting the blank back in the bag. So that was another thing that was pretty bad when you overdraw and you lose your blank. However, she told me that she had both blanks at that point, so she still had another blank when I threw one of them back. That's the most common thing, the overdraw. It's the most common infraction or issue that arises at Scrabble games is when people draw too many tiles. Um, And the procedure is as follows: the amount of tiles your opponent overdrew, you plus 2 to that, and then you turn over that amount of tiles. So if they overdrew 1 extra tile, you turn over 3 tiles. If they overdrew 2 extra tiles, you turn over 4, and then you give them back. Whatever number they need to make their rack full. So if they overdrew 2 tiles, you give them back 2, and you put 2 back in the back. But most common is you overdraw by 1 and you turn over 3 and you put 1 tile of your choosing back in the bag. So that's how they deal with the infraction in over the board tournaments, if you were unaware. So that is some people think it's too steep of a penalty. Some people think it's not steep enough because there are situations where it's actually strategically a good idea to overdraw on purpose. Obviously, if someone is caught overdrawing on purpose, that is an infraction, that's severe, and they can be suspended for that. But overdrawing on purpose, how are you really going to catch somebody doing that? It has to be a pattern of behavior. But there are certain situations when, for example, there are blanks unseen, where overdrawing is a good idea because the math is in favor of you drawing more and potentially drawing the blank and then only having a 3 in 8 chance that your opponent finds the blank within your 8 letters. Anyways, that's very crazy strategy stuff that we could talk about another time. But yeah, she ended up overdrawing, losing her second blank, and then redrawing it later. So she actually drew 3 blanks this game, and it did not help. So, anyways, that's the game. That's round 4. Round 5 coming soon, and I'm now 4-0, and I'm feeling pretty good. There are 3 more games to come for the day that I was playing for the Saturday, and then there were 7 games the next day as well. Anywho, catch you guys on the next episode later.